4. Thanks, Andrea. John chapter 4 here in just a moment. And so I encourage you to go there. Go ahead and flip me to the next slide. I'm going to show you 2 slides. So we'll pause on this first one right here. And so I want to talk to you a little bit. I've titled the lesson, Mind the Gap. Now, how many of you know where this image comes from? And it's from a whole different part of the world, all right? If you go, we're going to talk about the rail today. That kind of, sort of, all right? And I'll be honest, I don't know enough about it. I've not followed it enough. We were at the memorial service yesterday. First of all, I'm so proud of you. Some of you couldn't be there, but you wanted to do some things and you supported. There was a group that worked in the kitchen with the food, that led our singing, and just so proud of you being church with Katrina and Christina. So when I was there at the reception after, someone was telling me, and you don't have to have too many conversations with people till talk about local things going on till something comes back to the rail. Maybe because you've been stuck in traffic, or you're picking someone up from the airport. It's like 2 in the morning. You're expecting just to cruise. What's going on? Rail work, right? They have it down to 1 lane and all that. And maybe it's valuable. I'm not here to pick on either one. I really don't know enough to speak intelligently about it. So not that that's ever stopped me before, but at least this one time it will. But like it or not, is it good or not? What is it? Something like 900 million over budget now, or something like that, right? And so regardless, that's kind of tough. And, I want to balance it out. That's the negative side. But someday we won't have to go to Disney World anymore. Just pay $250, right? The monorail, right? This is the upside, maybe. I don't know. I thought we already had a rail. Pearl Ridge Mall, uptown, downtown. Just go right back. That doesn't quite work, does it? Now I do wonder if they're going to connect. The rail with that section right there. That makes sense to me. Save a little building, right? Can you imagine flying past Macy's? You're picturing it, aren't you? Flying past Macy's like at 80 miles per hour, and trying to get people on and off there. So that got me thinking about places that are kind of ahead of us in this whole rail thing. You think of famous rails, like in the movies, you go to Chicago and they have the elevated rail, the L, they call it. You go to different places. One of the earliest places where there was a rapid transit system was London, England. And this is, if you go to London, they call theirs, do you know what they call theirs? It's not the elevated rail. Yeah, Amy says the loo. No, that's something else. It depends what time of day. Okay, it depends. It's kind of like the New York subway. Also was one of the very first. Okay, if you eat Subway sandwiches, that's part. You've seen pictures on the wall. That's from the subway in New York City and those types of things. They call it the underground. Okay, let me see how awake you are. Why do they call it the underground?
It's underground.
See, and they say you're not very smart. So it's underground, and you're doing that. That would be kind of nice here, because then it wouldn't be the traffic, as they build it, right? Except I don't think they have to dig through like 20 feet of coral reef in London to get it put in. So here's my whole point. So looking back to London, England, they have this underground system, and it goes there, and you will see this sign everywhere. It's so regularly posted, it's almost become kind of an idiom or a saying. Then someone would say, even separate from the underground subway, they would say, oh, mind the gap. Mind the gap. And those Brits, they take our English words. It's like they think they had the language before we did or something. They take our English word and speak about it a bit differently, and then they mean different words. Like we talk about the loo. If you don't know what the loo is, that's the toilet to go to the bathroom, right? What are some other things, other words that are different in British English than American English? Sorry? And in a lot of ways, we have some of that. If you look to our state flag, it's kind of a combination because of some trade things. I always thought it should have a palm tree or something on it, right? But the combination that it has, and so we use some of those words even. It's more British English what do you call? I don't want to give it away. What do you call what you put in the trash can? I'll use that word.
Rubbish.
Rubbish. Right? And so it is even bigger than that. Even if you don't like something, bunch of rubbish, very British English. What do you call the back of a car where you put things in there? We call it a trunk. They call it, do you know? In the boot.
The back of the trunk.
Yeah, what's it? We call it the trunk. They call it the trunk. No, they call it the boot. So if you go get a taxi and like, oh here, I'll put that in the boot. And you're thinking, that's not gonna fit in your boot, brother, I don't know where you got this job. You got one.
What about the hood?
The hood. I don't know that. Okay, we call it the hood. What do they call it? The bonnet. Alright. See, now try that for different, right? Put the bonnet on. You want me to put the bonnet on? Right? Okay. Okay, we're talking about public transportation, right? Oh, okay, but that'd be the American version. Like if you go to San Francisco and you catch the trolley somewhere, but I'm guessing in Great Britain you don't want to catch the trolley. Yes, so a trolley is? Okay, and you get a trolley then, all right, and you push around. Even that here, there's a great mix of it, right? What do you call, and there's at least 2 or 3, what do you call the trolley? When you go to Safeway, what's the trolley? What do you call it? Okay, cart. Some people call it a cart, right? What else? A basket? Wagon? That's what I was waiting for. You get one wagon, you're gonna get plenty of food, right? So you got the different words for that. So here, obviously you're going to say something. Now, what they don't mean here, this doesn't mean go buy jeans. All right, that's maybe in America we would say that. So, but mind the gap means put your mind and pay attention. There's a gap. Let me show you the next picture here. Give me a click. And we happen to find a British subway station with the verse for today's sermon on it. So I thought that was of God. Okay, I thought that was of God. So if you want to be in John chapter 4 in just a minute. So what you see, can you see the red is the train, or the train going by, and so this is the platform, right? And here's this little gap. The kids, we talked about that gap at the end of the escalators. And so everywhere you're going to see the previous sign, which is mind the gap. And on the announcements, it'll always be everything you're saying, welcome to this station such and such, mind the gap. And so in life, we have gaps we need to mind, right? We have gaps we need to mind. Some of those, maybe you're trying to mind the gap between what you hoped your life would be and where you actually are. Is there a gap there? Hasn't quite touched, it hasn't quite met the expectations you have. Is there a gap you have? Some of us need to step over the forgiveness gap. That's not a little one, is it? That's a big one. There's people who have hurt you legitimately. They continue to do that. But you hear Jesus saying, hey, can I set you free? And the way to be set free is forgiveness. And okay, but how do I step over that and not get hurt? Mind the gap. What about the difference? What about the gap between where the things that where you are today? I'll say spiritually, but I don't like that because then you think I'm not talking about relationally and emotionally and financially. So when I say spiritually, I think everything is spiritual. So whether it's things we think about like forgiveness or it can be relationships, it can be maybe just internally. I'm so it's a place that we can be safe to share. There are those of us who struggle with anxiety, depression, other things like that. This is a place where we can be open about that, and you have to mind that gap, don't you? Every day sometimes when that creeps up. All right, how am I going to safely step across this thing? Because some would say, well, I'm just going to stay away from the gap. But you can't do that, you see, because to clear the gap, because that train is going somewhere. That train is moving forward. That train is going where you want to get. Free from the bondage that this lack of forgiveness holds you. Free from the constant financial struggle and stress. Free from it ultimately all comes down to one fear, I think. The fear of not being safe. Christian author Larry Crabb, in his book, obviously, apparently on marriage, called Marriage Builder, he says there are 2 basic human needs: security and significance. Okay? Security and significance. Other words for that, we might say safety. I need to know that I'm safe with you before I can risk with you, right? And as long as I know I'm secure, then I can kind of handle stuff. I can handle the chaos of life as long as I feel secure. This morning I'm going to talk about this in two places. One, to have a secure, what I call a safe church. And I also want you to apply it into your homes. If you can get your church to be a safe church, and then your home to be a safe home, that's the huge majority of your foundation. And I think the emotional part of your life springs from one and or both of those places. The financial part, the relational part, the peace you have is often found or diluted or eroded in one of those two places. So what's it like to have a safe church and a safe home so that when we come to the gaps and we deal with the gaps, we can mind the gap and safely step across? Maybe the final question I put in your mind before we get into John chapter 4 is to ask, what gap are you keenly aware of this morning? You're standing there, and it looks scary. How do I step across? Maybe it's a New Year's resolution. Here we are at the end of January, and you've already broken it 3 times. If it was a good resolution to make on January 1st, it's a good one to make on January 31st. Is there a gap you're trying to step across? Ultimately, the gap is all about fear. And because we want to get on the train, whether it's some of these things, these real practical things I've talked about, ultimately in our relationship with God, they're all tied together. But I want to get somewhere, but I can't get on the train unless I step over this scary gap right here. So, probably not in a British accent, but Jesus says something very similar. To mind the gap. John chapter 4, it's quite a long section, so I'm going to try to read it pretty quickly. There are a few places I've even practiced trying to skip over very cool points in the story, and I can't do it. So I'll bring that up with my therapist in our next session. But until then, I'm going to stop at a few places here, and I want you to also understand, wow, I didn't know all that stuff was in there. And so as you're reading Scripture on your own, you're listening for it, you're hearing it pop out. There's so much interesting stuff. John chapter 4, I'm going to start in verse 3 actually, and then 4 through 42. So Jesus left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. So this is our context. The reason why that's important is because traveling from Judea to Galilee, you have to go through or around an area of the country known as Samaria. In Samaria, there lived Samaritans. You might know the story that we have come to call the parable of the Good Samaritan. To a Jew, there was no such thing as a Good Samaritan. Jews were basically the hapa of the Jew and the Gentile, okay? But not like today, where hapas are good looking and smart and brilliant, kind of like your preacher is a great example of that. But there they were very looked down on because they weren't fully Jewish. But then the Samaritans were not fully Jewish, and the Samaritans were not fully Gentiles. Okay? So there was no such thing as a good Samaritan to the Jews. Neither was there to the Greeks or to the Gentiles. So a lot of times what people would do is when they were traveling from Judea to Galilee, they would go the long way just to avoid going through Samaria. You have places, there are parts of the island you do that on, so you understand. We're not driving through there. Verse 4. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and you've heard of Jacob's well. And Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. So you think, okay, yawn, what's that detail about? But what you have to understand, there are a couple of things already here. One of them is that, you already know this about me, I want to say it more authoritatively than that. I think Scripture describes Jesus as more human than most of us are comfortable with. I think most of us like a Jesus whose feet don't get dirty. He walks 6 inches above the ground. He never struggled with temptation. He never struggled with sin. Even that's not what the Bible says. In fact, it quite explicitly says otherwise. But was he fully divine? Yes. But I think what part of what made him so divine is that he was fully human and still acted so divine. If you are only God walking around in a human form, then you don't understand what it's like to be human. human. You have not been tempted in every way as I have, and so you don't understand what it's like to be me. But if he's fully human, and we start there, it's an easier leap even for those if you're trying to share Jesus with people. Because to start with the divinity of Jesus is harder than to start with what's more easy to understand. Even historians who don't believe the claims that Jesus makes about himself, that there was this man named Jesus, and we know he lived in this area. We believe these are recordings of at least Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John's recordings of this person. And so one, he's very human. How do you see that? He's walking and he got tired. So he understands. Another detail here, it says it was middle of the day, right? It was about noon. Now why that's important is because no one goes to the well in the Middle East at noon. Why? It's hot. Okay? So you go early in the morning. It was also a social time for the women of the day. That was one of the women's roles. And so early in the morning, while it was still cool, they would get their pots and they would and carry them out to Jacob's well. They would fill them and have their water for the day, maybe return in the evening. But you never went in the middle of the day. So Jesus is tired because he's fully human. He's sitting at the well in the middle of the day. Verse 9. Here we go. Let's kick it up higher here. The Samaritan, verse 7. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into town to buy food. Now, here's what I want you to see in the story. They're making this false distinction between the physical and the spiritual. They're making a false distinction between what is visible and what is invisible. We all know that what is invisible is more powerful than what is visible. Wind. Can you see the wind? No, but powerful. What about wave energy? I'm not talking about the water itself, but the wave energy. Invisible. But it's what makes the water do the powerful stuff. An earthquake. Can you see an earthquake? No, but you can feel it, you can sense it, you can see its effects. So what is invisible is always more powerful, but for as visible creatures, we always want to dabble with things, and we're trying to step over the gap. I'm trying to get over this gap of my struggle. I'm trying to get over this gap of meaningless in my life. I'm trying to get over this gap of having no peace in my life. And so we start chasing, it's invisible peace. So we start chasing visible things. We try to cram visible things into the invisible gap. Money, relationships. We're about to talk about this woman. And she's someone who, she does something that many of us do. She tried to fill that gap with relationships. So listen for the visible and the invisible to the story. Can you give me something to drink? And then John, the author, puts in here in parentheses, for Jews do not associate with Samaritans. They don't associate with Samaritans. They don't drink, especially drinking after them or using their dishes and things like that. Here's Jesus' answer. If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him for a drink. And he would have given you living water. Okay? Verse 11. So he goes to what? The invisible, the spiritual, place where we find peace and joy and harmony and all those things that we're hungry for deep, deep down inside of our soul. She stays on the visible. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with and the well is deep. How can you offer me water? You don't have a bucket and a rope. You can't dip down in there. See, she's what? She's looking at the wrong gap. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father, Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock? Jesus answers, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become the spring of water welling up to eternal life. He keeps trying to bring her to the deeper thing, right? What is it that you're hungry for? What is it when you're lonely, the gap that you sense and it comes up when in your quiet moments? You understand it's Jesus who offers something that fills that. But we go after everything else, don't we? Where did she go? The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw the water. See, it's still visible. It's still physical, she's looking. So Jesus says, go call your husband and come back. She says, I have no husband. Jesus said, you are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is just quite true. Don't you hate when Jesus just sees right through you? Has he ever spoken to you like that? Now, let's be real careful. I wish we had the videotape, right? I wish we had audio so we could hear tone of voice. I hear nothing. This is based on my view of God, and Jesus is the perfect reflection of God. I hear no snarkiness. I hear no judgmentalism. I hear no condemnation. I hear him just saying, you're still talking about the visible stuff. I need to invite you to the invisible stuff. Let me tell you some things I know that are not visible to me. Now remember, in Greek, we've studied some of this on Wednesday, so here's our Bible geek stuff for a moment, all right? The word for man and husband is the same word in Greek, the original language where this is written. Here, and the interpreters are quite consistent with this, but they say, Jesus replies, the man that you have now is not your husband. But you understand there are some commentaries that will tell you that the emphasis is on your. And that makes sense if you interpret the word, the Greek word, one is interpreted man, one time it's interpreted husband, if you make them the same. And the husband you have now is not your husband. Or the man you have now is not your man. He's someone else's man. So whether that is 100% true or not, what we see here's this serial relationship person, right? They just go one to another, fill the gap. Oh, you're not doing it. I'll get rid of you. Fill the gap, fill the gap, fill the gap. And aren't we the same way? Whether it's some of us maybe just in relationships, maybe there's other things that we're chasing. We keep trying to fill the invisible gap with something visible. And Jesus keeps trying to say, I want to save you from that. So she tries to turn it. So Jesus kind of talks about religion, right? And so here he is. He wants to talk about life, and she wants to talk about physical things. He wants to talk about invisible, spiritual things. And then so it's almost like, I think she turns the conversation. This is what we do. Oh, I see that you're a prophet. Oh, you're a preacher. I have a religious question. Have you figured out that your preacher isn't really interested in much religious stuff? It's just not interesting. It's just kind of boring. It's just kind of divisive. Because often when we're coming and asking religious questions, it's not out of a good heart. Religion, human-made, man-made religion, just kind of seems to have something inside of it that says, I have a question because the way you answer this question, I'll know what category in which to put you. Are you a true believer? Are you a heretic? Are you a lesser Christian than me? Are you a greater Christian than me? Whose side are you on? Are you on the side of the people who worship in the red church building, or the blue church building, or the white church building, or the brown church building? And if you'll answer this question, this religious question I have, then I'll know where to put you. And either honor you or dismiss you. You see, she's not any different. She comes back with this religious question. Now, what's interesting is Jesus says, all right, you want to talk religion? Remember, Jesus has like 18,000 PhDs, and he kind of knows a little bit about religion, right? And so listen to his answer. It would be very much like if you're asking a religious question, and then you get way more information than you want. She says, sir, I can see that you are a prophet. I can see you're a religious person, so I've got some religious questions for you. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews, do you see the separation already? You Jews claim that the place where you must worship is in Jerusalem. So what she's saying is, because we don't worship in the right place, you say that our worship isn't valid. We say, oh yeah, we don't care about your Jerusalem, we're going to worship over here. And so it's this religious divide that God never meant. So Jesus says, all right, I'll talk religion with you. Woman, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem. See, Jesus is not on either side. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit. God is spirit, and the worshipers must worship him in spirit and in truth. So at this point, the woman says, that was a little more than I was asking. I just need to know whose side you're on. So the woman tries to bring the religious conversation to a close. The woman said, Well, I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he'll explain everything to us. I don't need you to explain all that stuff you just talked about right there. And if you're not going to give me an answer, well, here's my trump card, right? Here's my trump card. We have the same thing, don't we, sometimes? So she wants to talk about the physical things. Are you trying to fill the invisible gap with the visible things? Sometimes, and I think it's a better step, but I think it's still very visible. Are you trying to fill the gap with religion? And you're wondering why it's not filling up. Just then, the disciples return. Maybe they're in town buying lunch, picking up bentos for Jesus and his crew. They come back from town, and he returned, and they were surprised to find him talking with a woman. We've not even talked about that Jews don't talk to Samaritans, and men don't talk to women. So here you have a Jewish man speaking to a Samaritan woman. Scandalous, okay? Scandalous. Earlier on, Jesus says, hey, can you get me a drink? It's almost like the setup of a bad joke, right? Jesus and a Samaritan woman walk into a bar, and what is Jesus doing? Hey, can you buy me a drink? You would have some of the similar scandal here that they're coming back going, what's he doing? Is anyone watching? With all the phones out now, everything gets recorded and put on YouTube. You can't just go talking to Samaritan women. So they're surprised by that. Why are you talking? But they didn't ask why you're talking with her. Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come, see a man who told me everything about everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? So here you have people that the Jews don't think are even really good God followers, but they're looking for the Messiah too. They're looking for Jesus as well. They came out from the town and made their way toward him. Now, look, verse 28. She leaves the well, and she leaves her water jar there. What's going on? She forgot why she came. She forgot what she wanted because Jesus was offering her what she needed. I came for water, but now I have living water. And it's not physical. I don't need a jar. I need to go back and tell, hey, you got to come out here. I think we found Jesus, Messiah, the Christ. Let me jump down to the bottom here. So you have all this stuff all the way through. And so she goes in and shares with the people. Some of them become believers that Jesus is the Christ. Verse 42 says, they said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world. Let me bring it back to our gap. Really what we're talking about here is what Jesus did is he provided for her a safety zone so that she could risk stepping over the gap. What he did was give his hand to her so she could step off the escalator onto solid ground. What he did was he slowed the train down enough and said, oh, watch out for the gap, but do step over. And he made it safe for her. What I want to do, let me just in a couple of minutes apply this to our church and to our homes. Would you make those safe zones, safe enough so people can step over the gap, over from unforgiveness to forgiveness, over from being from hate to love, over from being selfish and self-centered to being self-served, or to being others-focused and not self-serving? Can you help them make the step over the gap that they want to make? But the only way you can do that is if they feel safe enough to step over that gap. Here's what this might look like in your home and in our church. First, that it's physically safe. I'm going to get real specific, all right? You don't have to agree with me on this stuff. The other things we talked about, Jesus said it, so take it up with him if you don't agree. This part's the application, at least for your consideration and to wrestle. So, 3 things: physically safe, verbally safe, and emotionally safe. We're well on that track here in this church. Physically safe, emotionally safe, verbally safe, emotionally safe. Number 1, physically safe. So first of all, no more fist fights in the church building. Okay, one more day, but get it out of your system today. I'm a preacher of grace, okay? One more day, but after today, no more. Could you do the same thing in your homes? Have you figured out? I want to be real careful, but I want to be very specific. I want you to prayerfully consider the scripturalness, the godliness, or if you're a pragmatist, the effectiveness of physical discipline in your home. Now, I'm out of time, so I don't have time to wrestle with that and let you know, well, what did we do growing up and how did we wrestle with that, and that kind of thing. But I'm asking you, would you question, would you give to God, is this how you want us to raise our children? Is there a place for physical punishment there? What I know is that our culture and the culture of humanity has grown with significant leaps and bounds. Whatever you do, don't do what the Old Testament said to do. God's grown us beyond that. And so ask yourself, what I want to tell you is there are simply more effective ways. So even if you're uncomfortable with me questioning the godliness of it, let me just help you be more effective, and there are better ways. I'm also questioning that whenever we finally instigate physical punishment in our homes with our children, you're 90% of the time, you're out of control. Because if you're like me, you need too much motivation to exact the physical discipline, rather than saying, oh, this is what we do and I'm under control, or I'm frustrated, so I'm going to give this to my spouse. Hey, I'm going to give you some ways to continue it, should you decide to do that. I just wanted to say, take it to God. Maybe it's not there. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe how are we going to cure? Have you ever thought of that? Quit hitting your sister. How am I going to teach you to quit hitting your sister? By hitting you. At some point, we have to question the sanity of that, right? Again, David's opinion. I'm asking you to consider that. Take that to the Lord wherever you go with that. But for the first part about no more fist fighting in church, we're serious. Physically safe. Are you also using those hands in church and at home to encourage and to love and to build up? Is it a physically safe place? Our church, your home. Verbally safe. Words are so powerful. It's one of that invisible that has a very visible effect. I know life is stressful. That's what we're talking about. No demeaning. No discouraging. No tearing down. If anyone had the right to tear down, demean, judge another person with words, it was Jesus, the Son of God, fully human yet fully divine. And this multiple failure person, public failure, the reason she was there in the middle of the day, commentators suggest, is because she was probably an outcast in her community. And so all the other acceptable women would go to the well in the morning. She would wait till noon. When she knew nobody was there, she would look around, sneak out, get some water in the heat of the day, go back home. Now one, don't miss the beauty of God's acceptance of her and receiving her. But what does he do? Helps her step over the gap, and she does. How? By providing a safe place. See, safety is not ignoring your struggle or your past. Jesus says, hey, can I tell you stuff I know about you? Because see, as long as I don't know your struggle, then you go, well, that's why he likes me. If he knew me, he wouldn't be that friendly to me. So what Jesus does is, I want you to know that I love you. It's not because I don't know you. So let me tell you that I know you. And then let me not judge you or condemn you. Even though I'm a man, you're a woman, I'm a Jew, you're a Samaritan, I'm a rabbi, or prophet, she says. You're an obvious sinner. So he provides a safe place. Physically safe, but he also provides a place that is verbally safe. In your home. Not tearing down, not demeaning, not even discouraging. That's a pretty high standard. But instead, from your mouth, building up, encouraging, speaking life into the other people in your home. Can you make your home one of the safe zones? One of the downsides of all the rail work going on is all the rail work going on and the traffic, and you drive and you see a lot of the guys and women wearing a safety vest, right? You notice, I kind of don't like it because it makes you read their behind, this kind of down here. But I guess they're construction workers. We should give a little of the back, right? Right, ladies, right? That wasn't in my notes and should have not stayed not in my notes. But it says on the bottom, it says what? No one gets hurt. Okay? No one gets hurt. Maybe in your workplace, maybe you have safety first. I'd like to tell him Charles, but I'm not going to tell him his story. Yes, I am. Okay. He says with his, he's the director of maintenance at the Y, and so when he brings people on, he doesn't publicize this now, okay? On paper, it's safety first. But in the shop, everyone knows, hey, safety second. And so when they get a new person, they're like, is the safety supposed to be first? And so, of course, the indoctrination is like, well, if safety was first, then where's fun going to be? So fun first, but safety's a close second, you know? But you see the construction workers, what? No one gets hurt. And that's what we want in our church and in our homes. No one gets hurt here. The world is going to hurt you. This is not the place where you get hurt. This is the place where you get healed. This is the place where you get mended. This is the place where you get built up. This is the place where you get encouraged. Could you start building that place? You're doing it here, could you also do it at your home? Physically safe, verbally safe. The third one, emotionally safe. Can you also have a place where it's safe to do that? Because what's the gap in front of you? What's the gap that you want to cross? What's the gap you want others to cross? And we're so afraid of it. Why? Because we're afraid we won't make it across. We want to go where the train is going, but we're so afraid. How many trains have stopped? The doors have opened. You've thought about it. The doors have closed, and then it's left the station. Okay, there's another one. Yes, there is, but get on it. Why aren't your kids getting on it? Why aren't you getting on it? Why isn't your spouse getting on it? Because we're afraid of the gap. But Jesus says, can I give you a hand? Mind the gap now, but can I give you a hand? Can we make it safe? What's that mean? Emotionally safe means safe to fail. If it's not safe to fail, it's not safe to risk, therefore I will never succeed. Is your home and is our church a place where we can experiment, a place where we can do things that are kind of risky? I'm so proud of our teenagers. We went over and served Cheryl Communion across the street, and we went in there and we sang a song. And we don't sing, do we, teens? You know, we sang a song. We risked with each other. We had a couple people say a prayer over bread to serve her communion, over the juice. They risked. And if they thought they had to do it perfectly, they would never do it. But what we said is, you know what? My respect for you is not on the table. My love for you is not on the table. Your security with me is not on the table. The way I value you is not on the table. Whether you do it great or you blow it. Whether you freak out in the middle of your prayer, drop the tray, and run out screaming. Like, I'm still going to love you. That's not on the table. That's how God does, right? It's what Jesus is doing with this woman. I know who you are, but the way I value you is not on the table. It is not at risk. And it brings the gap a little closer. So let's continue. Building a church that's physically safe, is verbally safe, that is emotionally safe. Would you let that begin to overflow into your home? A place that's physically safe. A place that's verbally safe. Okay, we all need yellow jackets that we say, no one gets hurt. I think verbally, I want to give you some thermometers to know that I promise, if you struggle with this, you're going to mess up. So don't try it once and mess up and then throw your hands up. Just say, this is what he was talking about. What about yell-free zones? No yelling at church! Okay. How about no yelling in your home? Because when you're yelling, that just means you're out of control. At least the guy in the mirror, when he's yelling, it just means he's out of control. How much good happens when you're out of control? So what if we started using those thermometers to say, you know what? It's not a safe place. This is supposed to be a safe place. Why? Because Jesus is here. Because I don't have to earn the love of God. Because I don't have to earn value before God. It's just been given and lavished upon me so freely. It's simply not at risk. And then what might we do in that kind of safety as a church and as people in our families? Where might it go? Instead of having the battle at home, what if you lined up on the gap and you held a hand and said, okay, here we go. And you step across the gap, whatever gap you need to make. Let me end with a prayer. We have one final song after a closing song, and then a closing prayer. There's several different ways I wanted to apply that. We're just simply out and over time. And so I'll just trust that God gives this then to you, that you wrestle with some of these things. If you'd like to talk more about it, flesh some of these out, I'd be glad to do that with you as well. The main thing I want to do is let Jesus come to you. Let him tell you, I know you. I don't love you because I don't know you. I know you, and I still love you. And it's safe enough to risk. Because we find security and significance, we find safety and value there in the presence of Jesus. And it lets us then risk stepping over the gap together. Let's pray. Holy Father, thank you for the gap, that wretched, hated, dangerous gap that sometimes seems like a canyon to us. But without it, we probably wouldn't come to you. We probably wouldn't be interested in what you have to say. Except you're the one. Like Peter said, who else helps us prompt? Who else has the words of life? Who else says they know how to help us step over the gap? And so, Father, I pray for each person who's invested this last hour or so with us together, that there's been praise given to you, that you've spoken to them, that you've challenged them, but only in your gentle, gentle, shepherding way. Not yelling, just inviting. Offering your hand to each of us, saying, watch out for the gap. Let's step over the gap. Let's bring a little more love and joy into our church and our home. Let's bring a little more peace. Let's bring a little more serenity and harmony here in this place. Father, I pray for those who live in a home where not everyone's on board with that, where everyone's not going to cooperate with this plan. So I pray, Father, extra grace in those places, extra power and mercy in those places. I'm thankful for this church that is already heading down that track toward safety and being open with each other, realizing that judgment is not what's at stake here. Only support and only reaching out and only offering a hand and saying, let's step over the gaps together. Father, help us. Not be instruments of battle against one another. We've already committed and proclaimed that the battle belongs to you. Father, instead, make us weapons of peace. Weapons of warriors of peace. Aloha troopers. In the name of Jesus, amen.